What if the very moment she walked away wasn't your ending, but the exact moment your real self was born? Most people see rejection as proof that they weren't enough. But what if it's not about being enough for her, but about realizing you were never meant to shrink yourself to fit into her comfort zone? When she left something inside, you cracked, and for the first time, light poured in. That pain you felt. It wasn't weakness, it was life tearing off the false layers you wore to be accepted. It was your ego burning so that your essence could rise. You see, heartbreak doesn't destroy you. It reveals you. It shows you where you were, depending on someone else to validate your worth. And when you stop chasing, stop explaining, and start rebuilding, you awaken something ancient within you: self-respect. This isn't about revenge. It's about remembering who you were before the attachment, before the illusions. This is the story of a man who didn't beg her to return. He didn't spiral. He rose. If you're ready to shift from pain to power, hit like, subscribe, and comment below. She left, but I stayed with myself. Let's begin. Number 1. The betrayal that became the blueprint. Right now, it feels like something inside you broke, not just because she left, but because she betrayed the part of you that was still loyal when she'd already checked out. The silence, the excuses, the slow erasure of effort. It wasn't just love lost, it was trust shattered. But what if I told you that this pain wasn't the end, that it's not the fall that defines you, but what you build from the rubble? You see, betrayal doesn't just reveal who she is, it reveals who you could become. And if you listen closely, this heartbreak is whispering something powerful. It's time to evolve. Stoic wisdom doesn't tell you to suppress the pain, it teaches you to repurpose it. As Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. You couldn't control her deception. You couldn't make her stay, but you can control what you do with what's left of you. This isn't a time to chase closure. It's a time to claim sovereignty. Imagine your life as a kingdom, and this betrayal. It burned your first castle to the ground. But now you have the chance to rebuild, not as a servant, hoping for her return, but as an emperor who no longer waits to be chosen. Every gym session, late-night grind, and boundary you enforce from this moment forward are bricks, and brick by brick, you rise. She didn't destroy you, she unveiled you. That's the turning point most men miss. They think losing her means they lost their worth. But in truth, you never lost a queen. You lost the illusion of one. She mistook your patience for weakness, your loyalty to dependence. And when she walked, she thought she left you broken. But what she really left was the weight that slowed you down. This is the energy shift that defines legends. You no longer look back. You no longer ask why. You no longer carry the shame of someone else's betrayal. You use it. You transmute it. You let it burn away everything soft and uncertain inside you. And in that fire, you find something unshakable: clarity. From this day on, your story isn't about heartbreak, it's about resurrection. She may one day scroll past your name and feel a flicker of regret, but you won't even flinch, because you won't be the man she knew. You'll be the man she never deserved. If you've ever used betrayal to build something better, say it loud, below. Her betrayal didn't break me, it built my empire. Number 2, the fall that forged your fire. It didn't start with a loud crash. It was subtle, like cracks forming beneath the surface. The unanswered messages, the distant gaze, the hollow affection. And then one day, it all collapsed. She left, or worse, she stayed, but with her heart elsewhere. That was the moment everything inside you caved in. But here's the truth. No one tells you collapse isn't destruction, it's foundation work. You see, what fell apart wasn't your identity. It was the illusion that someone else could complete it. The heartbreak wasn't punishment, it was purification, a painful stripping away of the parts of you that still relied on external love to feel whole. The Stoics call this the beginning of virtue. As Seneca said, difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. The fall was not your end, it was your anvil, the place where pain, pressure, and purpose begin to fuse into something unbreakable. You didn't get betrayed, you got baptized. Most men sit in the ashes of their past, replaying scenes, clinging to what they lost. But the Stoic man, he looks at the ruins and smiles because he knows this is where it begins. This is the moment when rage becomes drive, when confusion becomes clarity, when silence becomes the forge. You stop waiting for her to realize what she lost. You stop checking her stories or decoding her indifference. You go inward. You work harder. You disappear, not in defeat, but in design. And behind closed doors, you start to build. Every hour you invest in your craft. Every moment you redirect from memory into motion. Every time you show up for yourself, instead of begging someone to return. That's where the myth begins, because no great man ever rose without falling first. The pain you're feeling now, it's not an anchor, it's a lever. Use it to launch. Use it to sculpt. Use it to become a version of yourself that's so sharply defined, she won't recognize you, but she'll feel the absence. And here's what's most powerful. You're no longer proving anything. You're not healing to show her what she missed. You're healing because you finally see what you almost gave away to someone who couldn't hold it. This is your moment, the moment you rise, not because someone told you to, but because you remembered who you were before they forgot. If you've ever turned heartbreak into your origin story, write this below. I didn't fall apart. I fell into alignment. Number 3, the power that begins where emotion ends. In the beginning, you were all heart. You loved with sincerity. You hoped with faith. And when the betrayal hit, it shattered more than just your trust. It shook your emotional core. The rage, the disbelief, the questions without answers. It was overwhelming, all-consuming. But then, something shifted. You stopped responding. Not because you didn't care, but because you'd had enough. Enough of breaking in places no one noticed. Enough of waiting for closure that would never come. And in that stillness, you found something rarer than love, emotional discipline. That was your first real step into power. Most men bleed out through expression. They scream into the void, hoping their pain will be heard, hoping their silence will be noticed. But the Stoic man learns a different lesson. Control is not repression, it is redirection. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. So you started holding the line. You no longer reacted to petty provocations. You stopped giving her the drama she expected. You stopped proving, defending, and explaining. You became unreadable. Not because you had no emotion, but because you finally mastered it. That's when the real shift happened. She expected the breakdown, the pleading, the meltdown, the eruption of pain that would validate her power over you, but you gave her none of it. just silence, just calm, just presence. And in that contrast, something deeper began to grow: curiosity, confusion, regret. Because when a man stops bleeding publicly, he becomes mysterious, and mystery is magnetic. You're not pretending, you're practicing power. Every moment you remain composed is a message. Every unanswered call, every unreacted post, every decision not to engage it, all speaks volumes. It says, I don't need this battlefield. I've already moved on to build something better. Psychologically, this does more than reverse the dynamic. It rewrites it. You're no longer the man trying to recover from betrayal. You're the man who used betrayal as a rite of passage. She may have expected to haunt you, but now your silence haunts her. This is your superpower: stillness that doesn't seek approval, a presence that doesn't chase, a mind that refuses to be puppeteered by emotion. This is not numbness, this is nobility. If you've ever chosen calm over chaos, control over collapse, say it now. I made silence my strength, and she felt every second of it. Number 4. When your absence became her regret. She thought you'd stay, maybe not in body, but in energy. She believed your heart would orbit her long after she walked away. You'd reach out, try to make sense of it, beg for clarity, maybe even plead for closure. But you didn't, and in doing nothing, you did everything. Your silence became the mirror she never asked for, but couldn't avoid. She expected noise, a final message, a last chance at control. But what she got was something far more powerful: a void. And in that void, she met the version of herself she didn't want to see, the one who took something real and walked away from it, like it was disposable. This is where the Stoic man separates himself, because where most collapse under the weight of rejection, you didn't flinch, you didn't protest, you let her feel the full echo of your disappearance, not as a tactic, but as truth. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." And in your silence, you lived that wisdom. You didn't try to convince her of your worth. You let your absence do what words never could. And it did, because now she feels you are in the places where you no longer show up. In the quiet of the morning, in the old messages she won't open, but won't delete. In the calm she mistook for indifference, but now realizes was discipline. She thought walking away meant winning. What she didn't expect was that you wouldn't follow. Psychologically, this reversal plants doubt. Doubt becomes curiosity. Curiosity turns into replay. Replay becomes regret. She may never say it, but she will feel it in every man who fails to match the presence you once gave so freely. And what about you? You didn't vanish to make her miss you. You vanished because you realized you no longer belonged in a space that couldn't hold your depth. You didn't ghost, you grew. You didn't disappear to punish her. You disappeared because you were no longer waiting to be chosen. This is what happens when a man values peace over closure, dignity over attention, legacy over explanation. So let her wonder, let her regret, let her memory do what you no longer need to. If you've ever let your silence echo louder than your pain, write it below. She didn't lose me when she left. She lost me when I stopped looking back. Number 5, stop playing for people who only play games. At some point you realize the board is rigged. You're offering loyalty, clarity, devotion, while she's moving pieces in silence, bluffing emotion and shifting rules whenever it benefits her. And you've been playing chess with someone who only came to flip the table. That's when the Stoic inside you wakes up. You stop asking why she changed and why she lies. Why does she test then, withdraw, then return? Because the answer is simple. Some people are addicted to chaos, and your order threatens them. And the more you try to win their game, the more you lose yourself. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality, and sometimes we suffer because we imagine that with just the right move, we can make them see our worth. But this is not your job. Your worth is not a puzzle to be solved by someone who never even opened the box. So you walk away from the table, not out of anger, not out of revenge, but because you no longer entertain performances. You no longer debate your value in conversations that are never meant to uplift you. You stop trying to teach depth to people committed to staying shallow. And something powerful happens when you do. You start redirecting every ounce of energy that was once used to chase, fix, or explain, and invest it into building your vision. You stop trying to prove that you were enough for her and begin to become more than enough for yourself. You upgrade your body business and discipline not for attention, but for alignment. This isn't withdrawal. This is ascension. Psychologically, the shift is unmistakable. You become unavailable, not as a tactic, but as a standard. You no longer audition. You no longer respond to drama. You choose your peace like it's your greatest currency, because it is. And while they're still looking for someone to play with, you've already left the arena. You're not angry. You're untouchable. Your silence isn't empty. It's full of everything you're becoming without them. Because a man who walks away from chaos is the man who builds an empire that chaos can't enter. If you've ever stopped playing games and started building your own kingdom, speak it now. I stopped proving my worth to clowns. I became the man they can't even reach. Number 6, heal in silence. Build in shadows. They expect you to bleed where they can see you, to post the cryptic quote, to argue back, to show signs of collapse so they can measure their power. But you don't. You vanish not in pain, but in purpose. Because healing isn't performance, it's preparation. When you delete the old chats, a sacred kind of power grows when no one is watching. When you stop checking her online status, when you get up before the sun and sweat through the ache she left behind, you're not running from the past. You're turning your back to it, to face what's ahead. This is the Stoic way. No announcements, confessions, or invitations to pity. As Epictetus said, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. And that's exactly what you do. You don't post about growth. You live it. You don't scream your comeback. You become it. In the silence, your muscles remember how to carry weight. Your mind rewires itself around purpose. Your soul starts breathing again, not in fragments, but in focus. The world doesn't need to see your pain. It needs to feel your presence after you've built it in secret. Psychologically, this is more than resilience. It's rebirth. When you stop sharing every step of your recovery, you protect its power. You insulate your rise. You become untouchable. Not because you hide, but because you prepare. In the shadows, your goals multiply. Your circle sharpens. Your energy shifts. And she might wonder where you went, why you haven't reached out. Why does your life no longer include her as the invisible center? She'll feel the absence, not just of your words, but of your attention, emotional labor, and loyalty. All of it gone. But you won't explain. You won't perform the healing she expects to see. Because you don't owe her closure. You owe yourself evolution. And when you re-emerge, it won't be with a speech, it'll be with a presence. One that doesn't beg, doesn't linger, doesn't react. You'll walk past her one day and she won't recognize you. Not because you've changed to spite her, but because you've grown beyond the version of yourself that needed her approval. So take this time in the dark, use it, protect it, because when you rise, it won't be to return, it'll be to rule. If you've ever chosen to heal in silence and build in secret, write this below. I didn't post my comeback, I became it in silence. Number 7. Your energy is the attraction, not your effort. You've tried being more available, more thoughtful, more impressive. You tried doing more thinking, that she might finally see your value if you gave just enough, but she didn't. Not because you weren't enough, but because energy can't be faked, and effort without alignment only pushes people away. That's when you learn. You don't chase attraction, you become it. Most men confuse effort with magnetism. They believe showing up more, texting faster, and giving extra attention will change her mind. But what they don't realize is that desperation is loud and energy doesn't lie. If your value depends on her recognition, she will feel it and retreat. That's where the Stoic man shifts. As Marcus Aurelius said, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." You stop reaching outward. You stop explaining, adjusting, and overcompensating. You go inward. You return to your center. Because attraction isn't about what you do, it's about who you are when no one is watching. So you start doing the real work. You fix your posture, not to look good for her, but because your body carries your presence. You upgrade your habits, not for validation, but because you finally realize your future depends on discipline. You stop proving yourself to the wrong people and start becoming someone who no longer needs proof. And slowly, your energy shifts. You become harder to access, not as a game, but as a natural result of self-respect. You stop explaining where you're going. You stop posting for attention. You become scarce in the places that used to drain you, and that's scarcity. That's when people start noticing. Because true attraction isn't loud, it's magnetic. It's not the man who begs to be seen. It's the man who becomes so grounded that people can't ignore him. And the same woman who once took your kindness for weakness begins to wonder, why does he feel different now? She feels the absence of your old energy. The neediness is gone. The approval-seeking silence has become a composed presence. And in that space, her mind begins to ask the one question that changes everything. Was I wrong about him? But by then, you're already too focused to care. Psychologically, this is the shift from seeking to creating. You're no longer trying to trigger desire. You're living in a way that naturally evokes it. Not through words, but through rhythm, through consistency, through stillness. If you've ever stopped chasing and let your energy speak, say it. Now I stopped trying to impress. My energy became the invitation. Number 8. Become the man she can no longer reach. There was a time when she had full access to your heart, your mind, your loyalty. She didn't have to earn your presence. It was given freely, completely. And maybe that was the problem. She confused availability with permanence. She mistook your patience for passivity until you changed. Until you disappeared from the version of yourself that made it so easy for her to stay lazy with your love. You stopped being the man who forgave everything just to keep the connection alive. You stopped waiting for her to rise to your level and decided instead to rise past hers. That was the day the distance became permanent. And not just physical distance, but emotional evolution. You grew, you upgraded, you got sharper, stronger, quieter. You invested your energy into your path, your peace, your discipline. And with each day, you became someone new, someone she can still name but no longer reach. That's the Stoic law of detachment. Don't punish people for not seeing your worth. Just become someone they no longer understand. As Epictetus said, you become what you give your attention to. And when your attention is no longer on her, but on your empire, your energy changes. It's no longer scattered, it's sovereign. And that sovereignty, that's what makes you untouchable. She might look back, she might test the waters, she might send a breadcrumb or a memory, but it won't land because you're not the man who needs answers anymore. You're not the man who waits for closure. You've become the man who outgrew the question. Psychologically, this transformation is irreversible, because when a man truly evolves, he no longer seeks the love that once broke him. He attracts differently. He speaks differently. He moves differently, and the people from his past feel it not just in the silence, but in the standard. She'll see glimpses, maybe through a screen, maybe through others who now admire what she once overlooked. And that's when it hits. She doesn't speak the language of your new life anymore. You're not distant, you're elevated. And the woman who once had your heart, she now only has a memory. One she can replay, but never rewrite. If you've ever grown so far, she couldn't follow Say It Now. I didn't level up for revenge, I just became untouchable. Number 9. When distance became the most powerful statement. She expected anger, expected a reaction, a final outburst, or a desperate call. Anything that would confirm her place in your mind. Because when people betray, they anticipate chaos. They count on your collapse to prove they still matter. But what you gave her was silence, and not the passive kind, the stoic kind. You didn't explain. You didn't announce your withdrawal. You just walked with clarity, with purpose, with dignity, and that unsettled everything. Distance is misunderstood. To most, it looks like defeat, but in truth, it's a declaration, a quiet roar that says, I will not fight to be respected. You didn't leave to punish her. You left because you finally understood that your energy was currency, and she had already overdrawn. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. You don't chase, beg, or retaliate, you vanish." Not into bitterness, but into betterment. Your presence is no longer up for negotiation. She doesn't get to dip in and out of your life like a revolving door, because now the door is closed, quietly, permanently, and this is when the shift begins, not in your world, but in hers. She starts to feel the weight of what's missing. Not just the attention, but the consistency, the devotion. The man who once made her feel seen. And the more she searches for signs of your pain, the more she finds nothing. No status updates, no passive-aggressive quotes, just absence. And that absence, it says everything. Psychologically, this is what haunts people the most. Not the anger, but the indifference. Because indifference isn't fueled by hurt. It's rooted in healing. It means you no longer react because you no longer need to. The war is over. You've withdrawn your army, your attention, and your access. This isn't cruelty. It's clarity. You realized that the greatest form of self-respect is refusal. Refusal to explain yourself to those who didn't listen. Refusal to stay in places where you were only half seen. refusal to make your pain a spectacle for their satisfaction. She may never apologize, but your silence ensures she never forgets. If you've ever chosen distance as a boundary, not a weapon, say it now. My absence wasn't punishment. It was my peace speaking for itself. Number 10. When disrespect, close the door forever. There's a line, invisible. At first, thin, flexible, forgiving. You let the first eye roll slide. You brushed off the sarcastic remark. You excused the small betrayals, thinking love was about understanding flaws. But over time, something shifted, not in her behavior, but in you. You stopped mistaking tolerance for strength. You stopped calling your silence maturity when it was just fear of letting go. And then it happened. She crossed the final line. And instead of reacting, you made a decision. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't explain the accumulation of every dismissed feeling or broken boundary. You simply closed the door. And this time, there was no key knock or second chance. That's the Stoic principle in motion. Your peace is not a negotiation. As Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation, so you chose to stop participating. You saw that her disrespect wasn't just a moment, but a pattern, and no matter how soft her apologies sounded, they came from lips that had already learned to cut. But your silence this time was different. It wasn't temporary. It wasn't tactical. It was final. Because you realized something most never do. Love without respect is just emotional debt, and you stopped paying. And here's what makes it unforgettable. You didn't give her the breakdown she expected. You gave her the upgrade. She never imagined a man who no longer plays in spaces where he isn't honored. You didn't beg for basic decency. You made it your bare minimum. And once she violated that, access denied. Psychologically, this act is seismic because most people rely on your empathy, on the part of you that always returns. The version that forgives too quickly, stays too long, loves too deeply, without a mirror of reciprocity. But when will that version die? You're reborn, with standards that can't be rewritten. This isn't revenge. This is rebirth. You don't unfriend. You uninstall. You don't remove her to make a statement. You remove her because her presence no longer aligns with the kingdom you're building. The kingdom where loyalty isn't begged for, it's reciprocated. You are not a placeholder for someone's convenience, but a sovereign in your own life. So let her remember the moment it all stopped. Not with anger, not with noise, but with the quiet assurance that comes from knowing you don't give audience to those who never respected the throne. If you've ever enforced silence where there was once disrespect, say it now. She lost access the moment she stopped acting like it mattered. You began this journey in pieces, thinking her goodbye was the final chapter, but now you've realized it was your first real page. She didn't break you. She broke the illusion that you had to be chosen to be worthy. And in that painful freedom, you found something greater than love clarity. You no longer need her to come back. Because the man who rises from rejection doesn't return to the life that broke him. He builds something stronger. If you've chosen to grow instead of grieve like this video, subscribe and comment, "Pain woke me up. I won't fall asleep again." Stand tall, move forward. The man who owns his scars never begs for healing.